London, 1305. The city wakes to the usual chaos. Vendors shouting, carts rattling over cobblestones, smoke curling above crooked rooftops. But on this August morning, something different is pulling people into the streets. A man is about to die. Not just any man. William Wallace, the face of Scottish rebellion. What unfolded that day wasn't justice. It was a message, loud and violent. If you're into dark history and stories that make your jaw drop, hit subscribe. You'll want more of this. Wallace's death wasn't quick. It wasn't noble. It was designed, engineered, to break him publicly and permanently. The crowd didn't come for closure. They came for a show. Forget what the movies told you. This isn't Braveheart. This is the real story. Uglier, darker, and far more human. In the late 1200s, Scotland was breaking apart. A royal succession crisis gave England the perfect excuse to invade. King Edward I, Longshanks, didn't want peace. He wanted control. To him, Scotland wasn't a country. It was unfinished business. William Wallace wasn't born into power. He was a minor landowner who'd lost too much under English rule. In 1297, he struck back, hard. At Stirling Bridge, his outnumbered forces crushed the English. Suddenly, the idea of an independent Scotland didn't seem impossible. He became more than a fighter. He became a symbol. That made him dangerous, to England and to the Scottish nobles who had already surrendered. Wallace exposed their weakness. To Edward, Wallace wasn't just a rebel. He was a wildfire. And wildfires don't get negotiated with. They get put out. Wallace kept fighting long after most Scottish nobles had given up. That made him a target. Edward VI wanted him gone, publicly, painfully, and permanently. A bounty was placed on his head. The English built a network of spies and informants. One by one, Wallace's allies vanished. The noose was tightening. In August 1305, near Glasgow, someone finally gave him up. Most believe it was Sir John Menteith, a fellow Scot who had switched sides. Whether it was greed, fear, or survival, Wallace never saw it coming. He was dragged from Scotland in chains, not straight to the gallows. First, he had to be paraded. Wallace was marched through English towns like a trophy. Crowds jeered, guards smiled. Every stop was a reminder. This is what happens to those who resist. By the time he reached London, he wasn't broken, but they were far from finished. August 23rd, 1305, Westminster Hall. Wallace stood before an English court, but this wasn't about law. It was a performance. The outcome had been decided long before he walked in. The charges: treason, murder, arson, sacrilege. Heavy words for a man who never recognized Edward as his king in the first place. Wallace didn't beg. He didn't flinch. According to witnesses, he simply said, "I could not be a traitor. I was never Edward's subject." It didn't matter. The court wasn't listening. They were writing history, and what they wrote was a sentence meant to erase him completely. Hanged, drawn, quartered. London woke up early on August 23rd, 1305. People poured into the streets. Vendors sold beer. Children climbed rooftops. It was a public holiday for a public killing. Wallace was tied to a wooden hurdle and dragged through the city. Cobblestones tore at his body. The route was long, on purpose. Every street a stage, every bystander a witness. This wasn't punishment, it was a warning. At Smithfield, the crowd pressed in. Wallace was hanged, but not to death, just until the world began to fade. Then they cut him down. Next came the blade. Still alive, he was disemboweled. His stomach opened, organs pulled out, burned in front of him. He didn't scream, some say. Others say the sound was inhuman. His head came off with one stroke. Relief at last. But the humiliation wasn't over. His body was quartered, arms, legs separated, and sent to different cities across Scotland. His head was dipped in tar and placed on London Bridge. a man turned into a message. A human body turned into a map of English control. Edward got what he wanted. For a moment, fear won. Scottish resistance cracked. Some fled. Others surrendered. Wallace's death was so brutal, so public, that even whispering rebellion felt dangerous. The message landed. Defy England, and this is your future. What Edward didn't expect. The execution backfired. Wallace became a martyr. His death, unbearable to witness, became impossible to forget. It lit a fire under those who had hesitated, including Robert the Bruce, who would later lead Scotland to victory. The horror created something England couldn't control, a legend. After Wallace, Scottish fighters changed. Capture was no longer an option. They fought harder, dirtier. No quarter given, none expected. England had meant to kill a man. Instead, they fed a cause. The English wrote him down as a traitor, a criminal. The court records still exist, cold, methodical, efficient. But in Scotland, a different version took hold. Wallace became the symbol of a country that refused to bow. Ballads were sung. Stories were passed down. His silence under torture became part of the myth. They broke his body, but not his will. Over centuries, the facts blurred, but the power of the story only grew. Wallace became more than a man. He became an idea, a rallying point for independence, justice, and resistance. Even outside Scotland, his death stirred something deeper. It forced people to look at what power does when it feels threatened, how justice can become theater, how cruelty can wear a crown. The execution meant to erase him did the opposite. It ensured that William Wallace would never be forgotten. Wallace's execution wasn't just about death, it was about control. A calculated spectacle, a message carved into flesh. And the crowd? They watched, cheered, ate, drank. Ordinary people pulled into something monstrous. That's the darkest truth. Brutality doesn't hide in the shadows. It thrives in plain sight. Edward the Wise wanted to crush rebellion by destroying its symbol. But symbols don't burn, they spread. Wallace's final moments, designed to terrify, ended up inspiring generations. Freedom, it turns out, is contagious. Today we think of freedom as a right. In Wallace's time, it was something you bled for. He died in the most horrific way imaginable, but not in vain. His story outlived every soldier, every king, every stone of the gallows. It reminds us that resistance matters, that dignity can survive even in the face of unimaginable cruelty, and that some things are worth any price.